Hey, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Brandon Naw, and currently I have an agency called Seattle Organic SEO, but simultaneously I do a few other things. I work in venture capital. I also serve as an acting CMO for a company called Wayfarer Journey. So I get my hands in a few different things.
Awesome. How'd you get started in the agency world? Are you an accidental agency owner?
100%. So in 2004, I had started a real estate practice. It was my first venture on my own after working at Amazon, Expedia, and a company that got gobbled up by Google. And a friend convinced me that I would be good at sales, which I absolutely detest. And instead of selling, I thought, well, how can I get people to find me? And so that was my first foray into SEO, which is what our agency specializes in. And at the time, it was 4 years after Google had, just went IPO, and it was the early days of SEO. I didn't create the agency until about 6 years later. And that was because I didn't feel comfortable enough at my skill set. And then I had to actually leverage it in another company, which I helped grow about 1,400% in 3 years. It was an education company in South Korea. We went from how many? It was like 3 schools to 16, from 500 students to 7,000. I was number 2 in charge, but I was leveraging SEO to replace a source of instructors because we needed instructors right and left. And so I fine-tuned my SEO skills, and then I came back in 2010. And then, funny enough, I just Googled Seattle SEO, and then I reached out to the 3 top owners, or they were agencies. The third guy, who wasn't really an agency per se, who was there, Rob Hampton, I think was his name. He was getting out, and we made an agreement where he'd teach me everything, and I just paid him a lot for it. And so that was my education into the SEO world. Within a month or two after launching Seattle Organic SEO, we were number 1 for all the Seattle SEO terms.
Fantastic. Why did you, obviously you worked with Amazon and Expedia and some of the big brands. Why did you not want to continue working with them?
So unfortunately for me, I always exited those companies before I could really cash out. Like I was at Amazon when it was $12 a share, and we weren't even sure if we were going to survive. Bezos was also kind of an ass, I'll be honest. I mean, yes, he's very good at what he does, but he didn't pay us. This was in the early days. And so, he said, he actually, funny enough, I stood up to him in a company-wide meeting, and I asked him, so Jeff, you got kids, I got kids. Why aren't you paying us more? And he just started laughing in this typical ah ha ha way. And then he said, I give you stock options, so shut up, basically. And then the whole room, you could tell, just went silent because, he had kind of made a mistake in what he said. And the second in charge of HR came up to me and said, we're really sorry. We're really sorry. But that was Bezos. And working inside of there, I just saw Barton, actually, the founder of Expedia, on a podcast. And I remember being in meetings with him as well. It's funny how these companies, when they mature, how shitty they get.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
Because I probably listened to that same interview with the Expedia founder. And I think he went on to do Zillow and stuff
Yep,
like that, right?
Glassdoor, exactly.
Yeah, and Glassdoor, which I gotta, like when I was listening to the interview, he's like, yeah, I wanted to mess with people, right? Like, because CEOs really respect their reputation, and that'd be a great way to make them pay to take that shit down.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, you're an ass.
Well, he was not that dynamic in person. He actually, every time I saw him talk, I was just kind of like, he's our leader. But I mean, at the same time, I mean, Barton's brilliant in a lot of ways, right? So these guys, they're nerdy a lot of times. I don't know him 100%. I don't know Bezos 100%, but you'd be surprised at how unimpressive they are. Sometimes it was timing. Sometimes it was, their path. There's other elements. I could speak for days on why I think they succeeded.
Well, I think too, even when I look back, like if you went back to some of my first employees I had at my agency, I've learned so much over the past 25 or 30 years or however long I've been doing this thing. right? Like if you went back to them, they'd be like, oh, Jason was an ass. He didn't know what he was doing. Right. And I didn't, right? Like we were trying to just figure it out. Like, how do we survive?
100%. Still
Right.
doing it.
And just like get to the next day. You look at like ranchers. One of my favorite shows is Yellowstone.
You're a cowboy today.
You don't act like the man from the stories I've heard.
That's the thing about being a grandfather. I get to do all the things I wish I'd done with my children.
And they always say, like, look, we're just trying to make it to the next season. That's it.
Right.
We're not trying to go further. And I felt like in the early days, that's what I was trying to do. One of our team members on our exec team ran apple.com. And he used to tell us all kinds of stories about jobs and like all the crazy things that he would do before all these movies and all the books came out. And I was like, but how did he build that company?
Yeah.
But he had to adapt. Like, I think the best leaders adapt so quickly.
Exactly.
Because when I listened to the interview with the Expedia guy, I was like, man, this guy's awesome. How do I get to that level?
Sure.
He was really refined and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, and then when I hear your story, and then I've heard that about Jeff Bezos as well, I'm like, all right, what do you think's changed for them over the years?
They've obviously gone from intense to more relaxed because they got billions now, right? Barton, I think, pivoted into VC from what I saw, and so a lot of them do move into venture capital. Bezos, Bezos seems to be all into Blue Origin, right? He's like sending his girlfriend up and Katy Perry and shit. But that's a really good question because I've actually thought about that recently. I was like, what are these people who've conquered the world? Like, what do they do next? They got plenty of years, even Obama, for example. Like, what do these guys do? And I can't say I know 100%, but they're the type that I would argue are going to continue to try to trailblaze in some way or another, right? But then again, I might be wrong because when I listened to that same interview that you're talking about with Barton, it sounded like he's just taking care of his health. He took care of his kids. Now he's just, catching up on the news every morning.
It was on Tim Ferriss, I think. That's what I was listening for.
It was Tim Ferriss's podcast.
Okay,
exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually re-listened to it recently too, because again, it's always funny to hear their perspective on a podcast and then experiencing it in real life.
Yeah. Now I'm not even close. I don't have billions. So please, everybody listening, like this is only going to be from my little perch. Okay. But when I sold the first agency, right, I had enough money where I didn't have to work anymore. Okay. So I retired for a number of different years. But when I did that, I lost my sense of purpose. I lost my sense of worth, right? Because when you're operating at such a high stage, for me at that point, right, like I had a lot of significance and a lot of growth. And I look at some of these leaders out there, right, that we just mentioned, and I think they lose that purpose.
They do.
Right. And they go, I need to go disrupt something else. I need to keep doing this versus going, when I think about it, they don't look at themselves as creative. They don't look at themselves as innovative, right? They look at themselves as the CEO of Amazon, right? And if I'm not the CEO of Amazon, I'm nothing. And that's how I looked at it when I sold the agency versus now I look at it like, hey, I'm creative. I'm innovative. I can apply this to anything that I want.
Sure.
Do I want to go, do a bunch of videos on Jeep videos or whatever it is, right? Like put that effort to there versus it's all about the money, or they just love the recognition too, right? Like when that recognition goes away, maybe they lose some of their purpose. I don't know.
Yeah, there's ego involved. I mean, my story, you made me think about how I became who I am. I was grilled to shit by my parents. Still am. Like my parents. I'm a Korean American who immigrated when I was 3 years old into the States. My parents didn't know better. They had a middle school and a high school education. They didn't know how to freaking parent. So what they ended up doing is they literally, they did the typical tiger parenting or whatever, got me into college. I chose, funny enough, a school that didn't have as good of a reputation as the school I got into. I got into two good schools, but the one with the better reputation was bigger. So I was like, I'm not going to go to some school that, has like 500 students in the freshman class. I'm going to go one where they take care of me. Well, that was a big fucking mistake, in my opinion. Like, I was coddled. And for 4 years, I was living a life that was unrealistic. I mean, they say USC is like the University of Spoiled Children. I went to kind of a version of that in the Puget Sound. It's actually called University of Puget Sound. And I kind of regret it. It sounds like what you did, you went and basically made it happen and stuff. And now I don't know where you're at now, but sometimes you need kind of the rough conditions, or, you need literally hell to happen to you to become better. And I believe, I did suffer when I was a kid, but like my mom in first grade took me to the river to kill us. We were supposed. She literally was going to. She threatened me because I had stolen a marble. She wanted to teach me a lesson. She dragged me down the river bank and said, "We're dying today." Third grade, she threatened me and said, "If you don't marry a Korean, she's going to kill herself." Like I had all this mental abuse, that she even these days. It's funny. She's like, "No, I didn't say that." But that was my life. And, it turned me into who I am now.
That makes the conversation with Jeff Bezos pretty easy.
Exactly. So I don't know. I mean, I personally believe, I might not be Bezos today, but I do have the potential to become him now. Because I just finished taking care of my twins. One's a K-pop idol, another one's a computer AI engineer. They just both, the K-pop idol has now debuted. The engineer has graduated from UCI, and so they're good, right? So now I have this ability with all this experience, including the agency, to go and do some really freaking cool things. And honestly, I feel like sometimes it's that environment. So you say a lot of people who run agencies probably listen to this podcast. I was just told by the CEO of the firm that I help as the CMO. He said, "What do writers do when they can't figure something out?" Let me ask you that question. What do writers do? Like they have a problem when they're writing. What's the solution? What do you think?
What do you think? What they do now, or what they did a couple years ago?
So let's say, for example, a screenwriter is struggling with a problem when they're writing a movie for like a producer. How do they solve that problem?
I would say just keep writing, right?
Well, it's kind of a version of that. What he told me, which I thought was funny, is he said, make the problem bigger, because then it makes you focus.
Yeah.
It makes you focus to solve that problem. And that blew me away, because I mean, it's true. Sometimes when you're in triage mode, you figure it out. But when you're comfortable, sometimes you don't have that pressure.
Hey, agency owners, if you're sticking with one platform for every project, you're probably stuck in a growth bottleneck. More clients means more hires, which adds noise and cuts into profits. To break the loop, you need a more flexible tool that doesn't stretch your resources. Now, Wix Studio is a smart addition to your agency's toolkit. Intuitive by design, your team can quickly master the platform and focus on the work that matters the most. Now, with robust native business solutions like booking, e-com, and events, you can take on any project at any scale without adding cost to third-party plugins. Plus, Wix Studio is a low-maintenance platform, meaning you can redirect client budget toward real growth initiatives. Think more value for your clients, steady income stream, and stronger relationships. Scale your agency at wixstudio.com.
Yeah, well, I think too, a lot of agencies look at it right now of going, they have people shooting at them at all different angles, whether it be self-inflicted or, the market tanking or AI or whatever it is. They're just so clouded by kind of the fog of war that they're not able to really kind of figure out what's that big one that I need to make bigger in order to solve that. When you start to get, like you said, get laser focused, you find that problem and you make it even bigger, like you're going to find a solution. because you're going to test it out, right?
Yeah.
Like it may take you 10 times, or it may, like I was watching the Masters tournament a couple weeks ago, and Rory McIlroy, or it was like he won it on the 16th try. Like, come on, man. Like, that's awesome.
Right. No, that's awesome. Seriously. Yeah. I totally agree.
I do want to switch focus a little bit. I want to talk about, like, you've been in this SEO world for a long time. And I find myself and so many other people not even going to Google to do Google searches anymore.
No, I completely agree. A friend of mine, he has a startup. He finishes a computer science degree over at Duke, and he now runs, I think it's a mental health startup, but he had posted on LinkedIn about a month or 2 months ago. I can't remember. He said, you know what? Google's not in my vision anymore. I don't use Google anymore. I just use AI. Right. And I kind of made fun of him a little bit because he's a friend. I said, hey, that's what you think. Like, you think that everybody's using AI because you're smart as fuck. I mean, this guy has an asteroid named after him. Like, he's so brilliant. Like, I could speak for hours about how great he is. But I was thinking, no, you're just making an assumption because you're smarter. Like, you operate at a different level, right? But, then fast forward 5 weeks, I'm like using AI every day, like for everything. And I would agree, like Google, but that's why Gemini just came out, in my opinion, is, with 2.5 rather.
Yep. Yep. I like that too. I even look at, I read a study that HubSpot blog traffic is down by 80%.
Oh yeah, I can totally see that. Well, there's
Right?
a theory that I heard recently, which maybe some people have confirmed it, but Google's trying to figure out like what content is AI driven, right? So if they see that your website or your agency is constantly producing AI generated content, and Google can figure it out, they might penalize you like in the old days.
Yeah. I don't know. When I go on the web to do search, I use like ChatGPT.
Sure.
Or even if I did go to Google, it's going to have the Google summary at the very top that's AI, generated. And then I'm like, oh yeah, versus just clicking on a website. I don't know. It's fascinating to me that, I mean, I started my agency before Google. And then Google came out maybe 2 years later or 3 years later. I can't remember. Like, we started in 99 and maybe Google was 03 or 04. And it was really interesting to see how that changed everything. And now, like, with the change of AI and being able to create AI agents, or Gemini just released their gems, I think it's called, which is really pretty sweet. It's a fascinating time that we live in. And I just hope everyone's, leveraging all this.
Yeah, 100%. No, I mean, I feel like right now is an arms race because you have Manus, you have DeepSeek, you have Perplexity, you have Anthropic's Claude, you have all these specialized AIs, you have people building their own AIs. It's crazy. I mean, like, I just joined an AI agents group, funny enough, because I had talked about, well, you're probably familiar with X Spaces, but I just went there to have a conversation with a few friends of mine that were doing a AI mastermind. But funny enough, X's Spaces wasn't working that day, so I connected with another friend, and she happened to have this group of 120 people. That, I mean, these are the geekiest, the nerdiest people in the world, but they are so fucking brilliant. Like, they are just, and the stuff that they're talking about. So I feel so lucky that I got involved in this. But yeah, you need to, in my opinion, you need to coalesce because this stuff's coming at us really, really fast.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Brandon, this has been a lot of fun having you on the show. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think would benefit the listeners listening in?
Well, I mean, if everyone's an agency owner out there, I would argue, don't freak out too much about the AI, even though I just kind of talked about one way of preventing you from getting behind. But on the flip side, I do have to kind of warn you, like, even though I'm saying don't worry, do be prepared, because it's sometimes 2 or 3 people against you. Like, if a person or an agency has multiple agents literally operating simultaneously against your agency, which might be all human powered, well, you might be behind. So I know that's kind of a contradictory statement, but
what I always tell everybody, especially in our community, is AI is not going to replace you. The people that use it will. So constantly keep testing it out. Like we were talking about this in the mastermind last week, right? One of the big things is a lot of agency employees, the owner will be like, AI is going to be the next big thing. And the owner will tell the employees, hey, go find out a use case that we can use this for to make our agency better.
Right.
And a lot of the employees are like, I hate change. That's why I'm an employee. I don't want to, right? Like, I
Exactly.
don't want this to affect my job, but it will. And so they're like, oh, the owner's just going to try to find a replace me. And they look at this as threatening. So then you task your team to go do this. They don't go do it because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. Now you as a whole company and an entity is behind the ball because you put it off. And so I look at it as you as an owner need to bring in people that love this technology. Like, and you'll know within your team, like if you have these supporting AI people, because they're already using it to do stuff, right? Like
Agreed.
I've created so many AI agents to help us out to write scripts to, not just going to ChatGPT and going, create me this LinkedIn post like this.
Right.
Like deep training this on all the success stories,
Exactly.
all of our branding guidelines, all the problems that our clients are having, right? Like really training this thing deep, in order to do this. And, that's one thing I just want to tell people is like, don't just put it off to your team that's already kind of going, hey, Jason, check this out. That's the one to task for the AI, right? Because they're already using it. They're already supporting it. They're going to be the biggest champions in AI because, man, it can replace a lot of people very quickly, but you can get ahead of this. Awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on the show. Everyone, if you believe that you want to be in a room with other amazing people that are talking about things like this and brainstorming and seeing the things you're not able to see, we'd love for you guys to join our community. Make sure you go to agencymastery.io. And until next time, have a swank day.